We want to hear the stories from the courses that you've taught. Whether in a lab, a classroom, kitchen, on Zoom, or in a shop. Drawing on your expertise, we'll ask the probing questions. What goes right and what goes wrong when teaching your favorite lesson? Welcome, everybody, to My Favorite Lesson, a podcast hosted by Teaching and Learning at Conestoga College. My name is Dr. Lauren Spring, and I'm a teaching and learning consultant with the college. And today I am lucky enough to be here with Lindsay Richardson, who is a professor in the Institute of Food Processing Technology. Hi, Lindsay.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you feeling?
Super excited, super nervous, but you made me sound so good.
Yeah, this is a great media studio.
Yeah, but just the way you said everything, you did. Food processing technology, I loved it.
Well, Lindsay, why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience with Conestoga, how long you've been with the college, you know, what the path that you took to get to the college?
Sure, I can totally do that. I had to look this up. I didn't realize how fast time had flown. I started in August of 2018. Okay. So I guess I'm about 4.5 years, approaching 5 years soon. So I'm still relatively a newbie or a baby, I think, by college teaching standards. So I like that I'm still relatively new because then, means I'm still learning a lot, which is great. I never taught before coming to Conestoga College, zero teaching experience, and hired full-time into the Institute of Food Processing Technology. So that was great. I was super excited about joining. My background, as I'm from the University of Guelph, I'm a biological engineer and I have a food engineering minor. So I'm very passionate about food production and food engineering. And the three main programs that are taught at IFPT are the Food Processing Technician Program, the Operations Leadership in Food Manufacturing, and Food Safety and Quality Assurance. So I've been able to teach across all three of those programs, which was pretty fantastic. So I got to use all my previous experience. For me personally, what brought me here? Well, I graduated, like I said, with my engineering degree, and then I wanted to travel Europe. My parents did not. So
they didn't support that idea?
They did not support that idea. Actually, funny story. I was going to go backpack across Europe like everybody wants to do, right? Mm-hmm. So they're wild oats. And they said, just apply to one job. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, I love you. I will apply to one job. Mm-hmm. And so I picked one random job that didn't even list what the company was. And I sat down and I drafted a resume in about an hour, and it was not a good resume. And I sent it off. And then I got a call to go for an interview. And I know everyone's like, well, you should be so happy you got a call. But I had plans to travel. Yeah. And I didn't want to join the responsible work world just yet. And so I decided to go for the interview. And it turned out to be Bacardi Canada.
Oh.
Which I did not know. But I promised to my parents. I took it very seriously, went and did the interviews. So I had 3 interviews for the role. The last interview was 3.5 hours long.
Holy moly.
Yeah. Want to hear the best interview question ever?
I sure do.
Yeah. Craig Bradshaw was the HR manager at the time. And about 3 hours in to this interview, he goes, so what does frustration look like? And in my head, I was like, it looks like me right now. Please just let me out of here. Yeah, I'm like, I left my, he's my boyfriend at the time, but my future husband sitting in a car in the parking lot.
Oh, no. Thinking it would be 40 minutes.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll be back in an hour. Meanwhile, this is now 3 hours in. And I just wanted to be like, would you let me out of here? And I was like, this in my head, this is what frustration looks like. Obviously, I didn't tell him that answer. But I made it through the interview process. After 3 interviews, I then had a job offer.
Oh.
And I was like, and my parents are like, Europe's always there. And I'm like, yes, but I want to go now. And they were like, no, you should enter the work world. So I entered the work world and I joined Bacardi Canada, which was an amazing experience. Mm-hmm. It was in Brampton. I don't know if you know where that is located. Yeah. I'm originally from Port Dover, though, So a very small town of like 5,000. And that was a lot of city. That was a lot of city. And, visiting my family was like an hour and a half to 2 hours each way. It was a little bit much. So I decided it was time to move closer to home. And then I joined Frito Lay Pepsico in Cambridge, where they make all the snack food products.
And these were both like engineering roles at Bacardi and
that's a really good question. Yeah. So at Bacardi, it was engineering and in the blending department and development. So that was a lot of fun. I was supervising people for the first time in my life right out of school.
Wow.
It was intimidating, but I had really great employees who taught me so much.
That's key.
Yeah. And when I went to Pepsico Frito Lay, though, it was more of the supervision front and less of the engineering front. And so I was in part of the extruded department. So if like puffs and sun chips and things like that, but they made Doritos and potato chips and all those delicious things. I tell you, when you've had hot, fresh chips, it's really hard just to buy them off the supermarket shelf.
Go back to the bagged ones.
I have been spoiled for life.
I was going to ask if you got free samples on the floor.
Yeah. Well, you had to sample the product.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, it's quality control. It's very important. I had to sample at Bacardi, alcohol industry. We were part of the taste test panel, so you actually had to drink on the job.
Wow. You didn't need Europe after all.
No, I didn't need Europe after all. But you didn't like drink it.
That's what your employees taught you.
Best
There's a limit.
job ever. No, it wasn't like that. And then with the snack food, so I did supervision there. And then I was lucky enough to go to Johson and Johnson in Guelph, which is like over-the-counter pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, different kind of food.
Different kind of food, but a lot of the same processes and a lot of the same expectations. So, I had alcohol, snack food, and then drugs. And the running joke was like, oh, you should find like cigarette manufacturing. And there was one in Guelph, but I think for the better health of society, it has closed down. So I couldn't really go for the full gamut of everybody's vices.
Right.
I thought, wouldn't that be a heck of a resume? But at Johson and Johnson, I had a huge breadth of different roles and careers there. I started there in supervision and management, and then I went into the engineering department, and then I was into their packaging, like engineering support, as well as project management, and got to do all of that. And then number 4 here is Conestoga College, which was like just a complete 180 from what I had done before.
I was going to say, there's a certain trajectory here.
There is, but I think, a little bit of the project management and, all those team meetings and things that you end up leading at work start to prepare you for sharing information and working with others. And I wanted a new adventure. Right. So business is always kind of going to be business, and you do learn a lot, and we bring our experience with us to Conestoga College. But the idea of working with students and that kind of different, exciting environment and that interaction every day was really appealing to me. And lucky for me, I had a coworker at Johson and Johnson. He graduated from Conestoga College in the robotics and automation program, and I was working with him in engineering, and he goes, I see this job. You should apply for that. And I'm like, oh, I can't do that. He's like, oh, yeah, you can. You can do this. I know. And I was like, you know what? What are they going to say? No? Right?
Yeah.
So following others' guidance, I was like, all right, let's do this. And so I applied and joined an amazing team at IFPT.
Yeah.
Yeah, just absolutely amazing group of professors and technicians I get to work with.
What do you find amazing about them?
Just how passionate they are about the content we teach and how much they want to support the students, which I really love. They just, we have an IFPT Expo where we bring in, representatives like HRs and representatives from like major food manufacturing companies have like a career fair and an industry panel and discussion. And we're always just really me along with them, really just want to champion the students and give them that experience, like reaching out in our networks and giving them tours and helping them make connections to those industry professionals. And their dedication to keeping current and, what's new in the manufacturing, place. It's just, they're so much fun and they just really love what they do. And that it makes coming to work awesome.
I bet. Huh?
Yeah, like it's just, I can't speak highly enough about my amazing, coworkers and the teams that we have. And then, of course, the fun students. There's always these students that are goofy and energetic, and they just make you smile every day.
Well, they probably feed off that energy of the team you're talking about, too. If the faculty are really caring about them and wanting to, set them up for success, I'm sure students feel that passion in the classroom.
I think so.
Too.
I really think so. And the group that I work with they're like a goofy group. Like they will have their dad jokes and share the stories of when they messed up at work and, relate it to the students. And they're just so open and honest and amazing that I love the group I work with. Like I don't see me wanting to transition away from Conestoga College. Like it's just such a great place.
Wow. Well, and it's so fascinating to hear this trajectory, right? Because you did have so much industry experience and I imagine a relatively short period of time, right? To be at so many different companies.
Yeah. Like I guess, let's see, I'm trying to think how many years. I did about 16 years of industry experience before coming to Conestoga College. So, which is really short compared to a lot of professors. Some of them have like 25 years of industry experience. And I'm like, wow, like it's mind boggling. Sometimes I feel like, should I have stayed out there longer? But I love my job.
Well, and it sounds like you had a lot of different roles and a lot of different places too.
Yeah, I was blessed. I was really blessed that I worked with companies that love to develop from within. And I got to try a lot of different things to add to my toolbox in my career. So yeah, I was really, really fortunate to work with companies that had those opportunities and like to promote and grow from within. And that was nice. That was really nice. It's not always the case, right? So maybe I just have a really lucky horseshoe.
Well, I mean, it also sounds to me, based on what you've said about your industry experience and now time at Conestoga, that there's like a give and take, right? You had said, I think it was at Bacardi, in reference to Bacardi, but you were lucky to learn from your employees and they were really, supporting you. And I mean, that's one of the things that we encourage faculty to do at Conestoga too, right? Is you're the expert in a lot of things in the classroom, but if you're not learning from your students and your colleagues and everyone around you who know things that you obviously don't, because no one can know everything.
It's very true. We have graduate certificate programs. So we have students that have their own degrees and some of them already have real world work experience. And one of the best things we do is like, who has previous experience with this? Or do you have examples to share? And I just love learning from the students. A lot of them are international students as well, but they have worked internationally at Coca-Cola. Wow. So Coca-Cola India versus Coca-Cola North America. Yeah, you're the same company, but the experiences and how they have their manufacturing processes and how they contribute to it is amazing. So we get this huge breadth of knowledge and work experience from around the world brought into the classroom. And I love learning from them. Because, I can help you here in Ontario, Canada, but their knowledge of how things are handled around the world is a really huge contributor to the classroom.
Oh, I bet that would be enlightening for students, right? Just, broadening perspective of why.
Yeah, it adds to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I learn all the time. Love them.
And so I'm curious, and for folks who don't know, let's say students who are registered in this particular program, what kinds of careers would they go into?
Okay, yeah. So for the food, I'm the program coordinator as well for the food processing technician program. And these students would go into like a technical operation role. They may go into a company and look to be sponsored for an apprenticeship as like a millwright or an electrician. Some of them go into quality assurance roles where they're testing and managing the product. And I've had a lot of graduates go into supervisory roles because they understand how to work with the equipment and coach, teams into problem solving skills and things like that. There's a huge breadth, and depending on where they've decided to, come from or work on, because we also have co-op, during our program. The sky really is the limit within that food manufacturing facility. It's exciting. I've seen so many different roles come out of this.
Well, and you mentioned too, you've taught sort of in different programs within the department. And I'm curious, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of technical skills and a lot of, machine knowledge and that type of thing, but then also bigger picture, right? Like interpersonal skills if they're going in to supervise employees down the line, or even, I suppose, zooming out to that more macro, like why does quality assurance even matter, and how might that be different in different countries, et cetera, and why are these laws in place in Canada?
Yeah, the breadth of courses and things we teach in this program is fantastic. Like you said, all the way from food safety and food micro, and then in the food processing technician, they have maintenance and millwright courses. So they really are spanning, this huge range. Like it's running the gamut of, information about the food industry. It's like being a jack of all trades. So they do get quite the sampling of so many areas that it really is a diverse opportunity, and they can focus on an area, and if they're strongly suited to an area, champion that for their career development.
Neat.
It is neat.
And so you've brought us one of your favorite lessons.
I do have a favorite lesson. And when you asked me this question, in preparation, I thought, oh, do I have a favorite lesson? And then I realized I do get excited about delivering this content every time it comes up. My favorite lesson I kick off in food processing 2, so it's in their second semester. Okay. And this is when they've learned the basic skills in food processing 1 of their good manufacturing skills and, proper safety procedures and some general overview of the food industry. And then in food processing 2, we really start to ramp up their skill set of working with equipment and thinking, okay, if you were a food processing technician and your equipment was not working or your process was failing, how would you go about fixing that situation? How would you, determine what you needed to do to get that equipment running again or the process producing acceptable product again? What does that look like for you? Because if you've never done something before or seen a process before, you kind of walk up and you're like, where do I start, right? Like, yeah. I don't know what to do. Meanwhile, we all troubleshoot in our daily lives, from as simple as like you turn on the blow dryer and it doesn't go on. You check your button, you check the plug, like you start doing troubleshooting. So we try to build up this skill in the students and repeatedly use these skills in troubleshooting so that they become more comfortable in troubleshooting. And in a food processing technician role in a food manufacturing facility, when you have equipment that's broken or not producing acceptable product, everyone's looking to you to repair that as quickly as possible. Like they are breathing down your neck. Like, is it ready yet? Is it fixed yet? Is it ready yet? And so you have this pressure to be very efficient and very fast and, to find the correct problem. Yeah. Right away, because if you're not making product, you're not making money. So,
and these could be like machines that make what kind of food related, like anything. Packaging, like
it can be packaged. It could be the processing equipment, making a batch of product, all the way through to the packaging, to the shipping equipment. You name it. It's an entire production line. Wow. So anything along the way, if it's not working as it should, it could be your job to make that equipment, come back up and running as quickly as possible. And so we refer to that as troubleshooting skills. So you're trying to figure out what is wrong. So we try very early in their program to give them, a set of tools to help them troubleshoot as quickly as possible. And my favorite lesson, or one of my most exciting to deliver lessons, is for process mapping. And that is where you're schematically drawing out a process or how a piece of equipment is supposed to work or how a process is supposed to function. And so you can learn about how that equipment works. And then if it breaks down later, you're like, well, it was supposed to do this. Why is it now not doing this when you compare it to the previous process map? So in process mapping, you can take a simple task or a very simple piece of equipment all the way to something that's really complex. And you can map out step by step, using schematics like diagrams, exactly what is supposed to happen at each stage of the process. And this can be really tough. It's very simple. You're using very simple shapes like arrows, ovals, rectangles, parallelograms, diamonds. Like you position them all around to figure out what you need to do. And we start the lesson Like if it's very traditional lesson, seems kind of boring. I have a PowerPoint. I tell you what process mapping is. I show you what the symbols are. I give you some basic process mapping examples.
I was going to say examples of particular machines.
Yeah, or, basic process. You can be like, oh, here's a very simple thing, start, finish. Maybe it's 5 shapes on the diagram, but you can go to ones that have dozens and dozens, right? The sky's the limit. Your process map can be as big as you want it to be. But we teach them the basics, and then this is where it gets really fun for me, is I break them up into groups. I remember when I started here at Conestoga College, we have that faculty educator and development leadership training that all full-time faculty have to take. And my mentor, I was so lucky. I had Norma McDonald as the mentor for my group. Those who know. Hi, Norma, if you're listening. And which was amazing. And we had 3 major sessions over the first couple of years of starting as a full-time faculty. And our final focus, our final major topic when I finished my educator development was collaborative learning and active learning. So it's okay, make sure you're not just delivering a PowerPoint. What activities could you do? How can you engage the students into the material? And so that's been, something I've tried to focus on ever since starting at Conestoga College, because you're right. Is it easier for me just to give you a PowerPoint and talk about it? It is. Are you absorbing the material? Probably not.
That's right. So over the long term, maybe not easier for anyone, right?
It's moment, like pay me now or pay me later kind of situation. And so we really focused on that whole last session about collaborative and active learning techniques. So when it came to this lesson, it was like, oh, okay, I could be like, now draw a process map, but we could make this better. So we divide them up into groups. And then this is where it's a lot of fun for me. I give them everyday topics. Everyday things that hopefully, knock on wood, they have encountered. So we could do things like, selecting and choosing what you're going to watch for Netflix.
Okay.
It could be how you get ready in the morning. It could be how to do laundry, how to make your favorite sandwich, something along those lines. And you break them out. And this is where it gets really fun, because these are activities that you can't really do wrong. Everybody knows how they get ready in the morning, or what they choose for a Netflix show, or the process of choosing what they're going to watch. But their personalities really come out. They have an opinion and be like, oh, okay. And this is where you see a lot of fun. The shy students come out. There's no wrong answers. And the class really comes alive, because say choosing a Netflix show, they're like, oh, okay, PG or R-rated, will be one of their decisions in the process flow chart.
Right.
And then if they choose R-rated, they're like, is there somebody too young here watching with me, and then they'll draw their process mapper back around to go to a different decision, to bring them back. Or are snacks available? Like they really just get kind of
set up this Netflix moment.
They have this Netflix situation that they're building on, and similarly, like getting ready in the morning, they'll be like, am I already naked?
Starting point, okay.
And what they put in their process flow charts. And a couple times I'm like, is this okay? But they, it was, fun in the moment. And the students as a class are learning about each other as well, like their personal interests, where they're from, what they have in common, all comes out in these activities as well. And it's fantastic. I love in person doing it across the large whiteboards, because they can edit and erase and add and fix their shapes and corrections in the spur of the moment. Really easy to do as a group. Love that. And then you find some brave souls in your class who are willing to stand up and walk us through their process map. Because it's kind of like driving a car. You have to start at one point and you have to be able to get to the end point through the activity. And if you've put your arrows in the wrong place, or you don't have something connected, you can't really use the process flow map. And as they present it, they'll be like, oh, I feel like we're missing something here. And they're having their own light bulb aha moments as they're walking us through it. Or they'll be like, this is a decision, but I only put one path out of it. So it's not a decision. I can only go one way.
Right.
And they have all of these light bulb moments and all of the potential pitfalls of, I guess mistakes, if you want to call it that could be made in a process flow map, all come out as a class, but in really funny ways.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. Like I said, it's low stakes. They don't have to fix anything. They're just, figuring out how to use process mapping. And that is just an absolutely joyful lesson. It gets them out of their chairs. Everyone's usually laughing, and they really solidify their skills. And then when I follow it up with the in-person lab session, where I'm now at the pilot lab at the Cambridge campus in our food processing pilot lab, we can then say, okay, here's a piece of equipment. We've used this piece of equipment tons of times. This piece of equipment. Let's process map, let's say on the vertical form sealer, how it makes a bag or how it makes a pouch. What actions does this piece of equipment take to make this? Let's process map it. And then they're kind of like, oh, so like as I'm scaffolding this lesson and they're applying it to the equipment, they're like having to challenge themselves between, oh, I just always assumed it did this.
Right.
When they're not paying, full attention to each minute detail or each stage the equipment takes. And then it'll be like, oh, but what about this? Or when does this come out? And they physically watch the equipment in operation. You have to observe it. And then they're like, oh, and they learn so much about the equipment and how it runs and things they had never realized. And then we map that, right, as a group. We do different versions, so maybe it's sensor-based or maybe it's time-based operation. So they figure out how to modify it. And then we take that one step further and say, okay, now if the equipment wasn't doing this, and we add to the troubleshooting. So now when I set up a demonstration test for them, I technically sort of break the equipment so it won't work. They can use that to then say, oh, the next step for the equipment would have been to do this. So the jaws should have closed and made a really nice horizontal seal on my bag. It didn't. All right, what tells the jaws to close? What step didn't happen? And they can start working through what are potential causes that caused a break in their process flow.
And I would imagine, having that sort of visual map is an assistive tool, right? Like it's like instead of just, in my brain, I'm trying to figure out where are the steps. Like if it's been literally mapped out, it's easier to trace back.
Yeah, and sometimes they don't even need to refer back to the map. And it's that process of actually going through it to understand the equipment. They rarely have to be like, oh, what is this? The real key, though, is telling them you got to map it when the equipment's working. When everything is okay, you need to understand how it's supposed to work. Yeah. So then when everything is not okay and the process is broken down, you're like, what should have happened? How is this supposed to work? And even if it's a piece of equipment they've never seen before, they're like, oh, what would trigger this? What would make the next step happen? How is this controlled?
Yeah.
And then we start relating it to more and more complex processes throughout the entire semester. We'll move on to another piece of equipment that has delays and timers in it. And you'll be like, oh, here's your scenario. You came in for your shift. This piece of equipment isn't working. You don't know what the previous person did. How are you going to fix it? And they'll be like, oh, okay. They can go through observation. They can start realizing, oh, but if this isn't happening, maybe the sensor's not getting a signal. Right. Maybe the timer delays they've put in the program are incorrect. And they really just start to realize, okay, if A is causing B, where's the gap, situation. And it's so much fun. But that's my kickoff absolute favorite lesson because as they in the first semester, they're always like, oh, professor, this isn't working, and we'll help them. Right. But then we start to cut those apron strings, or, set them free, and we give them that pushback to say, okay, if you're the technician, what would you do? And that is kind of the steps that we go on to, giving them those skills to improve troubleshooting, use process mapping, and start working on their own so that they're ready to be contributors out in industry.
Well, and I find just, based on what you've described, that sort of scaffolding from, the first semester where, like you're saying, it's about familiarization, et cetera. You got to kind of see how things work. And then, okay, now you're advanced enough to really figure out there's going to be trouble at some point in your career and how are you going to be the one responsible for solving that. And
exactly.
And then that scaffolding of like, okay, we're going to start with Netflix and, these snacks is an external factor and this process, maybe I didn't realize I put my sock on before my pants for this reason. But I see the alignment, right? Like, and I think that's a really neat
Yeah, like just so think of something really simple that you've done every day, put it in a process map and just build it and slowly get more and more complex and use it as you go and build on it. It was really, Nancy Nelson, right?
Yeah, of course.
I've, had a lot of interaction with Nancy and took a lot of great courses with Nancy. And I remember talking about learning objectives and, focusing on the key learning objectives for the course.
Yeah.
And making sure it isn't just a one and done, and giving the students an opportunity to practice a skill more than once, 2, 3, 4 times, as well as be assessed on a skill more than once, which was really impactful to me. As a brand new teacher, I felt like, okay, I have to cover this, right? And you were just like, I got to make sure I touch everything and this. And then you're like, oh, but what is the meat and potatoes of this course? Like, what is the core skill set that we want them to learn? And then figuring out how to incorporate, and that, I guess, the repetition, like the practice of really solidifying that skill set. And to me, the troubleshooting and the process mapping is part of that. And how I could apply it multiple times throughout their courses with us to really send that home, to make sure it wasn't a one and done.
Yeah.
Right? To become comfortable with the skill set.
Well, and just as you've outlined, and starting in a low stakes environment, right? I'm sure they're not graded when they're doing their getting dressed, right? That's like, it seems fun and it seems playful, but you're planting the seeds for these much bigger assessments down the line. But by the time they get there, it's not going to be as threatening, right? Because they've had this sort of bond with each other and practice when it didn't seem as dramatic if, if one step was missed.
And the progression you see is absolutely amazing. And this is, and it was hard on me. I don't know if, you ever have that where you need to let go and push the students? Because, when a student asks you a question, you just want to be like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And you just give them the answer.
Totally.
But sometimes you need them to not have the answer given to them, or you need to challenge them into this, black mystery box of a problem. And, the disappointed looks on their faces when you're like, well, what would you do? And, where you give that pushback and you push them into the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? And I tell them, don't worry, nothing's going to go wrong. I'm here with you.
Yeah.
But it's up to you. How about as a team, you solve the problem, and I'm over here. Nothing unsafe is going to happen, but let's see what you want to do, or what do you think you should try? And just those probing questions to kind of push them into using the skill as well that's tough on me.
Yeah, because you probably feel protective, right? Or you want them to get it quickly, or...
it's just like, somebody asks a question, you answer. And it's really hard for me to be like, no. We've set up these, skills. This is the base set. You need to start pushing back so that they feel comfortable and equipped with the skills to do this kind of activity. Because it would be a base expectation for somebody who's a food processing technician to be able to troubleshoot the operation of equipment or correct a process. And that's kind of like one of the main, you've come out of there with that confidence and tools to do that. And that pushback as you're scaffolding from, we did a really fun, activities into let's model the equipment together to I've given you these problems over here with, without the guidance, so that kind of staged approach throughout their time with us to develop and grow that skill set.
Well, in long term too, right? Because I'm sure in the moment, you're describing their faces when you're like, I'm not going to tell you right away. I've got faith in you that you folks can figure it out.
Yeah, I do.
But then, when it comes to authentic assessment and you're right, setting them up for the future, long term, that's really great that they're going to gain that confidence to figure it out as a team, and then eventually, in the work world on their own if necessary.
Yeah, it is true though. And nothing's worse than when you challenge them to go back and you're met with them staring at the equation, right? And nobody's moving anything or touching anything. And I'm like, come on guys, you're a team, work on it together. And trying, for me, it's been, developing those probing questions for the students. Well, what do you think you would try? Well, what is actually not working? Or what do you think the problem is? Give me the symptoms, and kind of pushing them, I guess, like leading a horse to water, you know?
And I mean, what you're saying, like you described, some of these students are going to go on to supervisory roles where they're coaching. And it sounds to me like what you're doing in that moment. You're not like hands off, oh, you got to be ready, if you're going to the workforce. No,
Sink
you're
or
not.
Swim.
That's it. You're there. You're the supportive guide on the side that's coaching them through, which is exactly what, education should be, because they're not ready yet to be doing that completely on their own. But those little kind of baby steps.
Exactly. Yeah. You got to kick them out of the nest. It's, so by the time they get to food processing 3, it's, we're really looking for them to bring all of that knowledge from their food processing 1 and food processing 2 and just, take it for a spin. And learn to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, which a lot of, technicians and millwrights and trades and apprenticeship, they will tell you a lot of their role is like fixing something, but they don't know what's broken. Like, it's not obvious. It's not like the machine's going to say, oh, my arm hurts.
Right.
Like it's not going to give you that, red flag. It just doesn't do what it's supposed to do. So being, comfortable with that uncomfortable feeling and just saying, okay, what does my past experience tell me, could be a possible solution for this? How is this equipment supposed to work? What do I want it to do that it's not doing? And trying to build that, confidence in them, their knowledge base, and hopefully, willingness to try and just get in there and, make the magic happen. Because that's really what it is. And then when they get it to work and they fix the equipment, that aha light bulb, it's just... I know I'm happy for them, but the satisfaction I feel.
Well, I was going to say, and even, because it's also validating your pedagogical approach, right? Because if you had just given them the answer, they wouldn't feel that elated when things turned out well, right?
No, and it's hard because not giving them the answer is painful. Yeah. It's a tough feeling. Oh, yeah. It's, that's one I've been working on myself to become more comfortable with of, when to give help and when not to give help and step back. And when you see that, it's just, oh, I want to do the happy dance. Totally. It's just so good. But that is my probably one of my most absolute favorite lessons because it's fun. It's goofy. I have learned a lot along the way. Like I, made an assumption that everybody knows how to make a sandwich. That is not the case. Not the case. Not everybody knows how to do laundry.
And have you tried it? That's not super surprising to me. But
I feel like we're it was like, oh, is this really the stereotype of a student who's like left home and they don't know how to do laundry? And I was like, I thought that was a joke.
No wonder this shop has been a little stinky.
Yeah, right. I was kind of like, I didn't honestly expect that to be true. But I love it as well when the students say, hey, can we map out this process?
That was going to be my next question. Do they sometimes, have 100%. An idea?
If I give a group a topic and they're like, we don't really know that. And I'll be like, well, can you think of something that, you could do and tell me about it? And they're like, yeah, I think we can do this. Because even if I don't know exactly what the process is, as they're describing the process to me, it'll make sense whether or not their process map works for it. Yeah. And that is the beauty of it, is that it can really work for anything. So the students can be comfortable in their first go around with anything that they know anything about. And I love that. And again, usually you see some personality and the students start connecting with each other like, oh, you like that too? Or that's your type of Netflix. When they say, oh, you want to do horror or reality TV or something. And just, I see a lot of team bonding and student bonding through that activity and their confidence to work with each other and speak to each other and just break the seal. I guess you could say. I absolutely adore it. And like I said, I have a lot of fun with it too.
Which, I think down the line, probably that bonding that takes place and that kind of comfort is supremely helpful, right? When there are going to be maybe making mistakes in front of each other and
yes, or be like, oops, I just broke the equipment. Like they can cause damage to the equipment too. And it's like, well, let's talk about it. How did that happen? Like, what was the step or what thought led you to that? And they can say, oh, I had this and I thought it was this. And they have great interactions between each other to say, you're right, I was going to do that too. And then I thought about this, and they have wonderful debates. And I know the lesson is working when they get loud and everyone is talking in their group to contribute and they're excited with each other about the content. It feels good. It feels good because to me that, that really quiet classroom, or it's like pulling teeth where you want to get somebody to comment or answer a question or contribute. That's a tough day of teaching.
Well, and it is, and sometimes I think especially less experienced faculty will put that on the students, right? Oh, they're just a quiet group, or, oh, they weren't, they were tuned out or whatever.
Which is possible.
Yeah, sometimes could happen. But then to see them, like you had noted at the beginning, this activity allows them to see each other in a different light and for you to see them in a different light. Mm-hmm. And it's always rewarding, I think, as faculty when you're like, oh, they're inspired to do this thing that I imagined up for them.
Yeah, because I don't know about you, but I remember being in high school, and if the teacher made us do group work, I was like, oh, no. Please.
Yeah, often I felt the same.
Yeah, like no more group work. And now that I'm sitting on the other side, I'm like, oh, pot kettle black. I felt a little like, oh, okay, how can I make this a little more fun? Or, make sure you show the value to them of why we're doing this, to understand, I'm not just doing it to fill time. We have an objective here that's really going to help. And highlighting when we're done the activity, like, this is what we've developed today. We saw how this, and this came out, and really trying to build their willingness to work as a team. In a production, like manufacturing environment, nobody works alone.
Yeah.
Like you're always with a team. So that teamwork aspect is really, really important.
And how much they have to offer each other, right? Perspective-wise, technical skill-wise, interpersonal skills.
Many hands make light work. 2 heads are better than one. Like all of those idioms just really come flooding in to be like, like you need to feel comfortable sharing your ideas, contributing to the group, being heard, that kind of situation. And bringing out the shy students along with the students that will answer everything if they possibly can. Coming up with that mix is really important in the teamwork, and that collaborative and the active learning really is helpful for that. But I tell you, it was tough to be like, oh, what active learning am I going to do today? And I remember when I started, you take the teaching and learning courses with, part-time teachers, full-time teachers, people who have taught for years, and they were using all of this terminology I had never heard before, like scaffolding and, let's do something more than, think, pair, share. And I was like, what is this? I was like looking around, like.
Does everyone else know what think?
Yeah. And they're all like, and they had all this, like their own toolbox and their own skill set. So as much as I was developing the students' skill set for the role that they came to school for, it was my role as a teacher. I was like, wow, this collaborative and active learning is powerful and takes a lot of thought and a lot of planning to go into those activities. So, still learning, 4.5 years in, some courses you've only taught, 2 or 3 times. Yeah. And so when you get back around to them and you look at the notes and you're like, oh, this activity did not go so well. Yeah. This one you'd be like fell flat.
Well, that's so fascinating too, right? Because then you think, okay, was it the way I phrased the question? Was it that it should have been in smaller groups instead of individual, or
should have been earlier in the course, later in the course? Right. What did they not have, or did I just really create a boring activity?
Yeah, maybe this isn't the one. The part of today's class that should be active.
Yeah, it's almost like you hear the wah wah in your head when it doesn't go over. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been really challenging. But I think, a reason for me that this is one of my favorite lessons is that the activity is always a fun activity. So now I'm always trying to think, what is the next fun activity? So what can I do to introduce the topic and practice the skill, low stakes, high fun, and then build on it later? Yeah. Because I want them to come see me. I want them to come to class.
For sure.
Right? There's nothing better. I want to give them a reason to come and see me.
Yeah.
And hopefully I am. If you're out there, please come to my classes. I love to see you, all right? Because I love to connect with them and get to know them and their personalities. And I can't imagine, not having them come to the class. So, that to me is, if I can have a full class in attendance, then I got to keep working on these activities and the reason to come.
Yeah, you want to make it worth it, right? Because we know students are so busy these days and so many priorities.
So many competing priorities.
Yeah, if they're making the time and showing up to class an important part of their week, we want it to.
I want them to get their money's worth and their time's worth, and I want them to feel like, I made the right decision. Like, going to this class is key, and I've learned today, and it was fun. So hopefully, knock on wood, I can have more of these fun, lessons that I'm really looking forward to every term. Because I don't know about you in teaching, sometimes there's always a lesson, I think, even in every course that I'm like, oh, it's this week.
That one's coming up.
Yeah, this lesson's coming up. And if I feel like, it's just kind of dull, how do they feel when I love the subject matter? So I'm excited to apply this, I think, to many, many lessons in the future.
Well, you'll have to keep us posted.
I love
hearing about a good lesson.
It's true. And when we hit COVID, and how a lot of our, teaching and learning and developments went to Zoom, right? Or, remote, I missed the personal interaction, just like we're having right here together, because I learned so much from other faculty where they're like, oh, in this situation, I've tried this, or I found a great new app that does this. And the collaboration was absolutely incredible. It was my active learning, it was the pre and the after, as well as the course content from teaching and learning, was connecting with all the other professors.
It's so key. Huh?
It is so key.
And we're so lucky at Conestoga that people are teaching in such different departments and programs, and yet some of these skills really translate, right, from place to place. And it's fascinating to see how they morph and change depending on the classroom.
And for sure. And, for lack of a better term, like, why suffer in silence? If you have a challenge, somebody out there in our teaching community has also had it and has figured out how to navigate it. Why go through the pain if we have an expert in-house?
That's it. Yeah.
So, the teaching and learning, the other professors, it's been amazing.
I'm so glad. Just before we go, Lindsay, I'm wondering if you have a fun fact about yourself that most of your students and colleagues may not know about you that you'd like to share with everyone right now.
It's not necessarily fun, but I think it's a little surprising, is that this year I became a Cub Scout leader.
Oh.
Yes, I am Scouter Lindsay.
Wow.
To the 9th Guelph Colony Cub Pack. Let me tell you, I've got the red shirt and the neckerchief and everything and all the training to go with it. And it has been an adventure.
Isn't there a little song or a little credo at the beginning or something?
Girl Guides have that.
Okay.
Fun fact, I was a, Brownie Girl Guide Pathfinder and Ranger.
Oh my, you worked your way up there.
Yeah, I was super cool.
I'm sure you found your people there.
Yeah, I found my people. I think maybe I was destined for this role. I'm not sure. So they do. They have their motto is do your best. So
plain and simple.
Plain and simple. And
better than satisfactory.
Satisfactory. Is do your best. But it's been an adventure. I have kids who are like 8, 9 years old to about 10, 11 when they leave us to go to Scouts. And let me tell you, I think I am learning more from this group of young boys, could be girls too, but our pack only has young boys, than I think anywhere else I have in my life.
Oh, yeah?
They are hilarious. They are caring. They're full of hijinks. And, and I get to do amazing things too. Like, we just went to the Guelph wastewater treatment.
Cool.
Yeah. Kids love to know what happens when they flush their toilet.
I have a good friend who works there, actually.
Amazing. Maybe I met them.
I wonder.
And then we also went to the Guelph Waste Resource Center and learned so much. So I'm actually touring other facilities and learning about stuff, through Scouts Canada.
Getting to know the underground of your
city.
Getting
the underground, the underbelly of the city. So, I'm a Scout leader this year. So, Scouter Lindsay is in the house.
Scouter Lindsay. I should have introduced you as that.
I know.
We'll have to re-record the beginning now.
Yeah.
You heard it here. Lindsay's students. She is now Scouter Lindsay.
Yeah, they probably would. They probably would. I would be okay with that. But it's adorable when young boys say, Scout or Lindsay. And I'm like, who's that? And I'm like, that's right. It's me.
Got the shirt?
Yeah, it's true. I don't know. But when I grew up, you never used an adult's first name, at least where I lived.
Yeah, it seems to be more commonplace now.
It was always, go to Mr. and Mrs. house or, say hello to them or thank Mr. and Mrs. Who for having you. And now it's like Scout or Lindsay. And I couldn't imagine being called like Ms. Richardson. Right. But it's fun and it still catches me off guard. Right? Scout or Lindsay. You're welcome. So
thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I'll see you at an apple day in the city selling apples. Come see me.
Oh, we will be there.
Awesome. So goodbye, everybody.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Welcome.
Well, we have come to the end of another episode of My Favorite Lesson, a podcast hosted by Teaching and Learning at Conestoga College. You can find all episodes in this series and more by following Teaching and Learning at Conestoga on YouTube. You can also find this podcast on Spotify and other places you get your podcasts. If you subscribe, you'll be notified each time a new episode becomes available. For 24/7 support for all things teaching and learning related, please check out our Faculty Learning Hub at tlconestoga.ca. I'm Dr. Lauren Spring, reminding you, as the great bell hooks once said, that the classroom, with all its limitations, remains a location of possibility. Until next time.